And get the live stream going. Oops. Okay. And yeah, I'll continue to monitor, see if other folks join, but let's see if it's going. All right. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Shanika Ward, the current Atlanta chapter president. I'll also pass it to Perry really quick to do an intro. So Perry Carter is the national BDPA president. If you wanted to do a quick hello, Perry.
Quick hello, everybody. Hi, good evening. Thanks, Shanika. Thank you for allowing us to chime in. Hope everybody's doing well in Atlanta. Real quick, just as an update, we just had a very successful quarter, third quarter for BDPA. We received a grant from NASA. So with that grant, we will be standing up a project management office for our sites program, student IT, education, and scholarship. We look forward to that. And next year, for those that are new to BDPA, next year is our 50th anniversary. And we hope to have several celebrations through all of our chapter cities. And we also hope to roll out a very nice and robust strategy for the next 5 years, codenamed Tech 2030. So I'll share more with that with the chapters later on, Shanika. Back to you. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Perry. So thanks for joining us, Perry. And so if I might have missed the beginning, but for those that are also just joining now, but BDPA and Atlanta chapter, we are a membership organization with a focus on technology, as Perry was kind of sharing some of the events to look forward, hopefully in 2025. But our motto is from the classroom to the boardroom, and we're mainly about how to increase exposure to our community. So with that, I want to give a shout out to some of our sponsors. So Motion Recruitment with John and State Farm. State Farm continues to help sponsor our platform, so being able to stream on Zoom here. So with that, I'll hand it over to John to introduce our speaker for this evening.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Great to be with everyone this evening. Perry, nice to meet you. I've heard your name a number of times, always in a good light. So, welcome to our monthly session here. So you're catching us kind of midstream. This is part 2 of a 2-part series where we took a moment to kind of hover over the CrowdStrike outage that occurred and just what exactly happened. And Ron and team did a great job last month, just kind of going through that and explaining it and talking about what happened. And maybe more importantly, talked about ways to prevent that from happening in the future. So tonight is a continuation of that and kind of a deeper dive into the systems and tools that Tacilent has. And so we're going to go into like a solutions demo with their tool. Is it affectionately called Ollie? Am I right with that, Ron?
So Ollie is the AI agent. The platform itself is called Reset.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you're not really wrong either way.
Okay. I just like you kind of had me with Ollie last month. That kind of grabbed me a little bit. So
Ollie does seem to stick. We might be doing a pivot on the naming eventually, because that's where every time we mention in the demo, everyone loves Ollie. So
yeah, well, and I think the backdrop of the story of that and why it's named Ollie is the part that grabs people. So, anyways, thank you, Ron, for being with us again. I think this is the 3rd time that you've been with us in the last year. So we so appreciate people like you that give back to the community and, very, very meaningful to us. So thank you for that and to your team. And to Edwin for introducing you to us to begin with. So Edwin, I know you kind of were downplaying the fact that you were going to moderate this because it's somewhat of a kind of a deep dive into the tool, but I wanted to give you a second to say anything you wanted to say, but glad to be with everyone tonight.
Yeah.
And maybe what I'll say just before we get into everything, because this is going to be like, I think at the end of this, our minds are going to be like kind of spinning with all sorts of things. So just a look into the next couple of months might be a good thing, Shanika, if you're okay with that. So next, what are we doing next month?
I know we're still brainstorming topics, but we're hoping to have Perry Carter back with us next month.
Okay, that's
But,
what I thought. So
yeah.
maybe we can talk a little bit more about that at the appropriate time. And
Yeah.
then December, we take the month off for the holidays. And then in January, so just like a little sneak peek into the early part of next year. So January, we have the CTO of Global Payments. Her name is Julie Elmore, and she's going to just talk about like a little bit about career journey and how she ended up being a CTO at Global Payments. So it should be a great session there. And then in February, we have a gentleman that has been on with us a couple times. It's been a little while now, but his name is Greg Sims, and he is kind of a data consultant. So he's going to talk, and now he's on a project of all places. It's like kind of a political statement, I feel, almost in a ridiculous way, but he works for FEMA now, and doing some great stuff with them. So maybe he'll give us a little bit of backdrop on what's happening there. But the topic will be data interwoven with AI. So a good kind of continuous stream from what we've been talking about the last few months. So Ed, I'll hand it to you now.
All right, cool. Rich content
Yeah.
upcoming. Is the gentleman from FEMA okay? There's some whispers about armed militias.
Oh my God! Is that not the most ridiculous stuff you could ever imagine? I believe that he is, but I haven't talked to him in a few weeks, so I probably should reach out to him. So,
all right, all our best wishes to him.
Yes.
But no, thank you, JV. And I think in order to just do a round of gratitude here. So Shanika, the Madam President is your new code name or operations name is, but just really hats off to you. We every now and again get to talk offline, but always most humble about all of the work that you put in to this here, and it's meaningful work, and so I think everyone here is a beneficiary of that. So just quick thanks there. JV, known JV for years, and been mentor capacity, big brother, etc., but also has set quite a high example of this type of service to worthy causes. So highlight there. And Perry, just meeting you, clearly, you're at the head of something major here that I think we've all been beneficiaries of. And I think part of what is good about tonight, bringing this all together, is that Ron, Professor Johnson, and I shared this a little bit about this story previous, but in a previous work life, Professor Johnson comes along and helps us level up. We were in a bit of a crisis situation from a cybersecurity standpoint, and he pretty much pro bono came in, gave me the framework to create a cybersecurity roadmap. And yeah, we were understaffed, as many companies are, right? Many of you can relate to that. But with the key information that he gave us to three S's. First is S, stabilize, right? We're in a crisis situation. We need to get our footing, stabilize quickly. And then next S is sustain, right? Once we're stable, do we have a way to sustain our stability and then move along in such a way that we can then consider scale, as all organisms and businesses need to do. So, Ron, I think just true to the type of work you've done, public and private, you've been that sort of resource and expert guide in helping folks move about safely, at least in the cybersecurity space. So, huge shout out to you there. And that's where you'll see Ron allowing me to tag along with him and, help tell some of that story every now and again. I would do that for free, and I do. So with that said, right, why BDPA? How does this all tie together? I think what we're seeing with Tacilent and the type of work that Ron has done with the story that I just explained, and Shanika, what you're doing, JV, what you're doing, Perry, what you're doing. I think the pillars of BDPA are embodied in what Tacilent.ai is doing. Ron, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, his background in tech, Landry as a technical freaking wizard here, similarly. So this is a great cross section, great story to tell. But it's one thing to tell stories. Let's show some real time demonstration of tech in motion, tech in service of business, and in a way that'll inspire some folks, and let us see a little bit of the blueprint of how we get from conception to scale. And who better at this point? I think you're seeing some of his content on LinkedIn, or some of the Tacilent's content on LinkedIn. And if you've gotten a chance to hear RJ and Landry and the teams represent what they're doing, truly leading edge, truly disruptive, and we get to learn and benefit from this example. So with that said, Professor Johnson, Landry, please take it away. I will hover in the background. I've got some questions and even some screens to show you to help shape what a real enterprise kind of scenario is that you guys are helping to solve.
Yeah, so thanks, Ed. I appreciate the kind words from you and John as well. And just thank you, Shanika and John, for allowing me to join for a third time, right? I hope I haven't bored anyone with any of our previous conversations, but we're excited to talk more about Tacilent.ai, but then also to show you a little bit behind the scenes of like how we got to where we are, but then what the platform actually does, and discuss some of the use cases around that. And so I'll start a little bit just because I know we might have some new people on the call. I'll do a quick intro, and then I'll let Landry do an intro, and then we'll jump into. I hate PowerPoint, but I have a few slides that I'll walk through. I actually PDF them, but Landry, we were going through it a minute ago. He's like, "Yeah, that ain't gonna work." Landry's very nice when he tells me something's not gonna work. You can just hear it in his voice, and I can take very good cues and hints based off of my background. Right. So for me, so founder CEO of Tacilent.ai. We've been out of stealth for almost 90 days now. We started the company back in January. But even before that, the ideal of the company goes back to some time when I was an executive at the FBI before helping build out the intelligence program. That's where Ed and I first met in one of your previous lives. And then even from there, I also got to do a fellowship at Harvard. And so because of the white paper I wrote on predictive and future analytics, I was able to someone gave me the idea. It was like, hey, you can monetize everything that you put in the paper. At that point, I had no clue what the dude was talking about. I'm like, bro, listen, God and country for me, 24/7. I don't know what you're like, where you're saying I'm going back to work for the FBI and miss holidays, and how my daughter, which I found out years later, was upset that I was always like popping smoke or say popping smoke. Like it goes back. I was also in the military before as a special operations intel officer, which also has some relevance to what we built. And then the other piece that helped drive it home was I met the vice chair of Ernst & Young at a conference, and he was talking about some of these major global trends that he was tracking. And I was like, hey, his name's Sam Johnson. I was like, Sam, and we were actually really good friends now. I'm like, Sam, there's things that you're tracking that I didn't even know people outside of the government even cared about. And so what I was able to do with Sam, we just built the friendship, and he kept asking me like, hey, would you want a job? And I'm like, not really. Again, I'm God and country. But at that same point, my daughter was getting ready to go to high school. And I was like, hey, I don't want to move back to DC because that's where the deputy of the director of the FBI wanted me to come back to. And I was like, no, I like living in Atlanta, seeing my kid. And then I also like riding on the Silver Comet with Ed when I can on the weekend. So the experience at EY allowed me to understand how to monetize my experiences, but then also it taught me how to understand business, right? So when you come from the government, you're managing budgets. I had a budget at one point, at several different points, that was almost $100 million, but that was taxpayer money. I had to be a very good fiduciary of that. However, I wasn't really responsible for the margins. Like I couldn't really hire, fire, all those. Like, yes, you did that in those roles, but you weren't truly responsible for generating revenue for you to stay in business. And so at EY, I learned all about, basically, I went to, for 2.5 years, I went to what I call B school, and ended up and I learned really fast there. I had a book of business of 130 million that I built in basically less than 18 months of being in the firm there. And then I saw there's all these inefficiencies and there's a better way to do things, which helped me tie all of my experiences from the government and the military. And then that paper that I wrote, that how I could monetize that, but then how to organize data, and how my background as an intelligence professional with collecting information and synthesizing that and being able to objectively withstand whether or not I had to go brief the President of the United States, Joint Chiefs of Staff, or we were using that information to go capture or politically correct way. In the military, we capture and kill. In the FBI, we don't. We just capture, right? And so like getting information, not to be completely like dark there, but to be able to have information that withstood scrutiny, that could end up on the Hill, end up in Washington Post, which actually those things happen, even though it's highly classified. Some way things get out in there. So everything that we did had to come with a level of objectivity. And I'll talk about what that ties into the business some, but then also like why it's important. And with this being a BDA and specifically focusing on data, our AI platform is driven by clean and solid data, right? So when you look at how industry works, and I'll stop talking here before I get into the presentation, data is the new gold, is the new gold, is the new oil. It is the only fuel that matters for anything for AI to be able to function or to work. And so I'll stop there, let Lindsay do a quick intro, and then I'll jump into try not to put everyone to sleep with a few slides. But the one thing I would say too is like, please, like, if you have questions as we're going, Ed, if people want to drop something in the chat or raise their hand, please. We rather for it to be a conversation than just us dictating for an hour.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, Ron. So I'm happy to be here. That's my second time. I was there last month to talk about the CrowdStrike issue. So my name is Landry. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Tacilent. So Ron and I met actually at EY. So we were together on some engagement that was, I mean, some crazy engagement, but we managed to, to to deliver the engagement successfully. That's where I think that we kind of starting to think about working together. So, but before working at EY, I was the head of product security engineering, working for Siemens Healthineers. So I was deep into DevSecOps, cybersecurity. I have a deep background in cybersecurity and technology. I'm a graduate from Brown University. And then I spent like 15 or 16 years in technology in general, but the last 10 years were mainly in cybersecurity. So this is where we started to talk with Ron, and then when we left EY in January, we decided to build Tacilent, and you will have the prime time to see the result of our work the last few months. So yeah.
Awesome. So what I'll do next is just I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me know if you all can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. So what I want to go through is really just talk a little bit about how we got here, a little bit further into like the backbone and how the platform works, and specifically around AI and some of our driving principles for the company. And so what you see, one of our catchphrases is strategic decision making. So like our platform gets pigeonholed into a few areas, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But once people actually start seeing it, as you will, we call it use case agnostic. And when we say that there's another founder of AI Squared who basically he did a Forbes talk about how future AI products need to be agnostic. And when you think about what he's saying is AI is now going to become a part of everyone's lives and business. And so, like, how does that actually translate to that? And so, for us, what we like to say as we get into this is we basically created the true use case, an actionable use case for AI in a business, and not some theoretical, like hypothetical hypothesis paper that you want to push out and say, like, hey, I need, and yes, this is a sore subject for me, I need $30 million to go prove a concept, right? We've already proven our concept. Right now, we're entering market. And so what you see here on the screen are our 7 core values. So we're responsible AI company. And so when I say that, some people say ethical. We say responsible AI because that's covered as a part of that. And I really wanted to start the conversation of the day around these 7 core principles, because when you talk about the data that's being used to drive large language models, when you go and do the research of how those are built, they're built on stolen intellectual property. There's a black box around how those decisions are being made. And then there's inherent bias in that. And it's not so much just bias around like skin color or cultural things. There's just bias in it because it's built by a specific group of people that you don't even know who they are, right? So when we talk about overcoming biases, and that's one of the things I'll hit on here in our platform, we do a lot of things that are purposeful around how, like from my background. So I had to train intelligence analysts to be able to think objectively in the FBI and in the military. So you do not want biases to be showing up in any type of intelligence product that's going to go out, that's going to impact someone else's life. And so you want to do everything that you can to overcome those biases. And there's a lot of techniques that we practice and that we use that apply from my previous life, which are called analytical tradecraft techniques, which are some of the things that we traditionally do. And this is more so around the people part. And so you'll hear us talk about people a lot. Human in the loop extreme is what we call it. But it's the human in the loop is the AI methodology term. But specifically around this is really around focused on those techniques for analytical tradecraft, or like brainstorming, devil's advocate, some of those things that you do. So you put your biases out there on the table, even if it's something that's like you don't like the color red, like this needs to be something that you acknowledge when you're developing certain tools. Because what happens, you hear the term, and this is I give Ed credit to this on a panel that I did earlier this year, and Ed was like, "Hey, what about synthetic data?" And so one of the things that happens with synthetic data, and just the hit on like why understanding biases is important, if there's a bias in the original data set, and then you start training on the same data set by using synthetic data. So what synthetic data basically is, so once you spit out outputs from the large language model, you use that same output that the model spit out to train itself. And so any bias that comes out of that is just propagated, and then it makes it gets amplified the more you go through those cycles. And so it's very important that you understand why you should uncover those biases beforehand. And so I know I'm spending a lot of time on the foundational piece, and everybody wants to see the tool, and we're getting there. But it's really important to understand that you can't just take something off the shelf that's from Google. I'm not knocking any of them because there are supporters. You can't just take something off the shelf from a large language model and think it's going to function for your specific use case. It requires a lot of training. It requires you to have some understanding of these core principles that we have up here. And so one of the other things that I wanted to mention, just going back to number one, there is data protection and governance and privacy. So one of the things that hasn't happened right now, which is one of the biggest hurdles for implementing any AI tool, is most organizations haven't done any data governance at all up until this point. And so you have all this unstructured data, you have all these different databases out there, and no one knows where anything is. They don't even know like how much personal identifiable information or sensitive information that they have, or how it's gotten exposed. And so you have this cluster of chaos. And so one of the things I said in my previous life at Big Four, when at EY, I created the intelligence and data analytics team. And so one of the things I was doing was trying to clean up the data set of one of their go-to-market tools. And I basically just told the rest of the leadership, I was like, we should just start over because this is a waste of time. And the reason I said that is because one of the things that we're able to do for our platform and this goes back to my intelligence background, is we know the output that we would like to get to. So we work backwards from there to go collect the data for that specific output. And so for us, we only do specific things, and we're training our data set and eventually our small language model, the foundation that we built, to only do cybersecurity and risk, or cybersecurity and risk for logistics and manufacturing by industry. And so I just wanted to hit on these to set the stage for how important it is for us to be a responsible AI company. But these are principles that you should expect from every company that you're engaging with, especially if you're implementing AI into even in your personal life, or even into your business or your organization. So I'll pause
Professor
there.
Johnson,
Yeah.
just quickly, you made I think very poignant statement: ethical versus responsible. And do you want to just put a little extra piece on that?
Yeah, so I mean, so the ethics piece is a part of this, right? So like Landry and I, we talk about this a lot, right? Because we want to be very purposeful. Like ethics is, you hear everyone say that as a catch-all, but in reality, like ethics is just a part of this, as one piece of responsible AI. Responsible AI covers everything else that we have listed here. Like we mentioned, data security, cybersecurity, like safety, all of that, understanding bias, like that's not just like the ethical piece of like right and wrong. We're thinking about it beyond that, right? So in order for you to have something that's right or wrong, you need to be able to verify whether or not you even have quality data, or whether, like, why are you going to go spend all this time talking about ethics of something when you have no clue what the data that you're even trying to clean up is going to work. So when we think about the way I simplify it is, think beyond just right or wrong, but then what else needs to go into that, right? So when we think responsible AI, we want to know that it's not stolen information, that your IP is not being stolen, or you want to know that there's a security piece around it, but you also want to know that there's a safety part that's attached to it. And you want to know that there's actual oversight and overall governance of that solution, not just that it's ethical or right or wrong, or you didn't steal something, but you want to know that they're building it the right way through and through. So, yeah. Any other questions for okay. Sorry, I get on my soapbox. I feel like I just spent way too much time on this slide, but so one of the other things is just to start moving more into like the outside of the squishy Philly stuff into like what more about Tacilent. So just to give you a little bit more about the company name. So Tacilent is tacit, so tacit knowledge, TACIT, and resilient combined. So the reason we say tacit is I really want to do a brain dump for every single expert or even every single person on this call to be able to build a foundational database that we need to train our small language model or to fuel our language models, right? So that tacit knowledge is all of that information that's implied with things that we do, or just the fact that we're able to function as a cybersecurity expert. So thinking beyond just like, hey, what's written down in every single book, or what's written down on a term paper, or any of those type of things. Think beyond that. There's all those things that make it easier for us to be able to function as a professional, or to function in certain aspects of our lives. So the tacit knowledge piece. And we really focus on resilient, right? So resilience is a core value for me personally. Like, so being resilient for us to be able to get here, even on this startup journey, right? Like, it isn't ebbs and flows. Like, startup life isn't easy. Like Landry and I could probably attest to that every single day. Like you're at a high, like right now I might be on a high from being able to coming from this event I had earlier today, where like we have all these potential leads, but then you got to get into that sales cycle, right? Or then you're going to get on a call with someone that's going to call her, like we have here, is like, oh, your platform is just Power BI. I said, like someone said Power BI. I about lost my mind. I was like, you must not know what Power BI actually does. And so, or someone basically called us, they tried to insult us and say, oh, you're just a GPT wrapper. I'm like, well, technically, if anyone's a GPT wrapper, you have no clue what they actually did to even get the tool to function on top of GPT. Because if you start with GPT, which we built our minimum viable product on top of that, it is extremely hard. So you have to do all of this prompting. And so prompt engineering is basically asking the large language model the right questions, documenting it, giving it feedback whether or not it's right or wrong, or is hitting your intent of what the output that you would like to have. That is not so much an insult. That's actually like a badge of honor, because if you know what goes into that to make your solution function, that's not really an insult, but that's how like certain people might see it. When I say certain people, these aren't just clients, these are also the venture capitalists that we've spoken with, or it's just people that don't get it, or we didn't find, for us, finding market fit. So market fit for us is beyond what you see here, right? So the other thing we get called a lot is a governance risk and compliance tool. And so I think we might have some cybersecurity people on here, but I don't know. I know, Ed, you're probably familiar with that, or if anyone else is, but Ed, I'll pause there. Let's see if I can tell everyone what it is, but I want to, I guess, try to get this a little bit more engaging than.
A question for Landry, you might want to take this, but for the geeks here, at least me, you mentioned that your MVP was built around ChatGPT, the OpenAI tool, where you can create GPTs or you can build on top of their language model. But you're also a startup, a founder here, right? You guys had to conceptualize something from scratch. Curiosity, how many different platforms to get to Reset and Ollie today? How many iterations? What?
Every day. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, like, so GPT was one tech stack or tech path.
Yeah.
And then you decided to go proprietary, as you shared last month. But was there GPT? Was there Google Bard? Was there Meta? I forgot Meta's platform. How did you guys get from conceptual to how many hops?
So we looked at, I mean, let me speak this. We looked at other language models before we got access to, because we're part of Microsoft Startup Program. So because of that, like, we are able to get access to GPT-4's API. With that, and Landry, I'll let you talk. We looked at some open source when we first started. We looked at open source language models that were free to try to build this. But the more, and Landry, I'll let you jump in there. But the more we got into it, yeah. But I mean, it's also down to funding, right? Like
exactly. But yeah, I mean, the way we have the architecture right now, it's not depending on any type of, it's not depending on GPT right now, because the way we build the architecture is that if we have any type of LLM or our own SLM that we are building Terra, we can plug it into the platform and we will still have the output that we are looking for. But as Ron said, as being part of the Microsoft Startup Program, so we had access to the API of GPT-4 and now GPT 4.0. So it kind of helped us to move faster. But yeah, we check also Llama 2, we check Gemini, we check all those, LLMs that we have. And even for the output, the way we are doing it is that we are checking the output, like the prompt that Ron was talking about. We are asking the same question to GPT, to Gemini, to all those LLMs, and then we are validating the output. And we are taking the output that is like the most accurate based on our expert, validation. So this is how we are doing it. But the architecture, the way it's built, if today we are able to build Tira, the platform will be on Tira.
Wow. So kind of a multi-vector or multi validation methodology, right? You guys are sourcing from different disparate models, and then you're scoring or vetting for the best.
Exactly.
Wow. Nice. Yeah. Tell you what, before we go further to the demo, I know we're all anxious about that. Do you need to do a safe harbor statement maybe, or signal to us to stop recording at any time?
We should be okay. Like, we're not getting like super into any of this. Like, we're going to keep the demo high level. Like, there are a couple of things we'll talk about that we won't go into. So like if you have the need to get a one-on-one demo, we definitely can go that route. So I would say the biggest thing, we are over 100 plus demos at this point. So like what we're going to be showing, and the version we have now is basically almost obsolete because we're working on Ollie 2.0 right now to deploy. And then there's a lot of customization that goes into the platform. So what you see and what we'll be showing here is actually just a version, because it's different for each instance for the client based on their industry. So
let's do it.
yeah. So I'll keep moving. I'll just give you the next piece. We'll go over just an overview of like how the company is structured and more so about like the platform and the different service offerings that we have. So as John was mentioning before, so the platform is called Reset, and I'll go into what Reset actually means. But we have four major service offerings that we have. So Ollie is the AI agent within the platform Reset. So think of Ollie as the voice of the platform and also the back end of how things are working and how the decisions are coming out. What we have as well within that. So Landry mentioned the experts that are training it. So I jokingly, not, well, it's actually more of a badge of honor, a title now. So I'm the head nerd. Landry's the technical nerd. And then we have nerds outside of that that are coming on board that we're onboarding now, like the former CISO from Disney and Cox Communications, and other individuals even outside of that that are helping us train. But then also, when you get into the platform, there's certain use cases where the platform functions basically as TurboTax for risk, security, and compliance, to where you can get access to an expert at a fraction of the cost that you typically would if you were using traditional solutions. And then we have White Buffalo, which is basically like our consulting service that we come over the top. And so everyone that's onboarding right now, they basically get access to everything that you see here. And then the last piece is Thera, which is short for Antica Thera, which is the first supercomputer that was first Greek supercomputer. And then with that, that's where Landry said everything that we're doing right now is the foundation for us to get to the small language model. So think of small language models as from a neural network perspective. Large language models have billions of nodes. Small language models have thousands. And so when you think about efficiency and going back to responsible AI, like what does that look like on the back end? You can run SLMs on endpoint devices. So you can run an SLM on your phone. And there's some chips that NVIDIA is creating that you could run an SLM on. And so when you think about that, as the biggest drawback to that is SLMs are really meant to do specific things, and that's exactly what we need it for. So we're building it to specifically do risk and security or compliance by industry. No questions. I'll keep moving. And then just an overview just to start getting into the actual platform. So Reset is basically an acronym. So it focuses on regulation, economic, security, social, environmental, technology, and time. So when we were speaking last month about the CrowdStrike incident, and one of the things we were hitting on is like it doesn't matter, CrowdStrike is just their incident got amplified because they're propagated across so many entities. I think their stat was they're in 75% of the Fortune 500 companies. And so that globally impacted everyone. But what actually happened to them can happen to any other provider that has access to that sensitive piece of your tech stack. And so for us, what we focus on is like, how do you actually move from reactive to proactive? And so you do that by our platform, and we'll show you how we're able to build a very bespoke and unique output for our clients. So think of Reset as all the data points that you typically need to be aware of that might come in as news feeds, or you're at a conference, or you're getting on the phone trying to figure out to solve a problem. We monitor all of those for you, and it's tailored specifically for the organization. And so think beyond just like, hey, I get a news alert or I get an alert about the war going on X. Think about that news alert. How does that impact your organization? Does it impact your supply chain? does it impact what part of risk for you, or like new technologies coming out? We have 6G on there, quantum computing. How's that going to impact your organization when you're thinking about strategic planning and mitigating risk long term or even currently within your environment? So you can see everything else we have over there. I'll get into that as we get into the platform. And then just to show you how Ollie and how the platform is built. So the platform is built on 100 different frameworks and regulations. And those frameworks, from a security standpoint, is around National Institute of Standards Technology, cybersecurity framework, ISO 27, you name it, all of them, HIPAA, COSO, Enterprise Risk Management Framework. The list goes on, and we add new ones that we find out about every day, including AI risk management frameworks. So the reason we started with frameworks is to be rooted in a common vernacular across the board for conducting a strategy build and a risk assessment. And so this is the last slide, and then we'll get into there's one more. We get into the demo. So like how the platform works. So we start with an assessment. There's one step in here that's not showing. So we actually start with the profile. So the profile has over 30 different data points that are outside of the assessment that help us understand your organization. So if you're a public company, that's your SEC filings, like your 8K or 10K, or anything that you have on Forbes or on the internet. And then we have all of that information validated. So if we were to be working with you, Ed, or John, we would ask you to validate everything that we put in the profile, because that's going to drive the language model and the algorithm to give you custom information solely based on your organization. And then going back to the other foundational piece is that data set. So we're not going to give it, if you're a managed service provider or if you're in logistics and manufacturing, we're not going to have a data set that's for healthcare, trying to spit out outputs for you. It's going to be tailored specifically to the industry that you're working in. And so you go through the assessment. We spit out, because of that customization, and the assessment has over 300 plus questions in it. So it's not one of the things you saw was like, we're not just we're not a survey. So a survey is not going to give you qualitative strategy that you can go implement now. The other piece I highlight is, we already hit on the monitoring, is predictive analytics. So our goal that we're building these foundational models for is to add the traditional statistical methods to understand risk and do predictive analytics to give you simulations of how your decisions are going to impact you. And then we talk about the roadmap. So that's pretty much it. I'll let Landry start pulling up the actual platform here. But I just added a new quote to this. And one of the things I want to highlight is, we were meeting with the MSP's Chief Information Security Officer yesterday, and she's like, this is the GRC killer. And so when you think about like what those solutions are and who we traditionally compare it to, as Landry pulls this up. So we have 3 use cases that we're really focused on as we enter into market. Our first one in our biggest top client group are consulting firms and managed service providers. So our platform that Landry will pull up functions as basically a delivery mechanism and workbench. So think of, if you conduct an assessment or a current state, it typically takes a consultant, or it could take your team 350 people hours to complete that strategy build. We can get it down to less than 16 or 8 hours based on the size of the organization. And that's significant cost savings. We're talking about 90% cost savings when it comes to the traditional methods that is used to create a strategy or implementation. And just like the event I was at earlier today, people that were getting it immediately when I said this, like, so you're saying we can get to, if you know who McKinsey or who BCG or Bain, PwC, EY, or any of these other companies are, we give you that same level of quality output in a fraction of the time. And we guarantee it's going to be better than that. And it's going to be always improving and always living. And so you never have to conduct another strategy workshop again, another assessment. When you're using the platform, it's always evolving, always sending you updates and alerts. We get new knowledge from Ed or John or from Shanika or from Perry, that's new information, or we find out there's a new industry standard. You get an automatic update and it relates it back to your assessment. It's like, hey, you answered these questions, or this was your output. You were not squared away here in this area. You might want to consider these things to align so you can be more resilient long term. So I'll stop talking, let Landry take it over from here. And then I'll drop a link to our company website that's constantly being updated, because we just got an awesome marketing person that's helping us build that out even more. So the last phrase I'll say before we close it, before I head into Landry, is charge through the storm. So we say that as our continued motto, and you see our mascot is a buffalo, because buffaloes don't walk away from chaos, they charge through it. So when they see a storm on the horizon, they don't walk away, they take it head on. And that's exactly what we help organizations be able to do. So I'll stop sharing, Landry. I'll let you pull up the platform.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, for walking through it. I kind of had a question. So like for me, like my experience with like GRC is kind of just seeing the department around and knowing that they help with risk assessment. So if this tool will be helping with that, does that I don't know if this is maybe necessarily a question for you, but then I guess that leaves them available to do like other things. Like now they're maybe even more higher priority things they could work on, or does that completely leave them out of like a spot?
So
Like
the GRC person?
Yeah, like the GRC analysts and them
Oh,
that are
no.
kind of working on this.
Yeah. So we think so everything that we do, and I want Shanika, thank you for the prompt for that, because one of the things like is we don't think of replacement, we think of empowerment. And so our platform, you still need the GRC tool, but what's happening now with a lot of the GRC solutions out there, we call them symptom-based solutions. So they focus on the controls from a framework, and the controls don't really necessarily mean that you're a more secure, more mature cybersecurity or risk program. It just means that you're compliant with the framework. And so our platform looks outside of that and takes into consideration everything that actually needs to go into that, whether that's people, the size of the organization, the actual additional environmental variables that I mentioned before as a part of reset. And so we don't think it's it doesn't replace the person, it empowers them to be able to do more and to do the actual things that help mitigate risk. Just because you introduce a governance risk and compliance tool doesn't equate to a strong program. It just means you're compliant with the set of standards. And when you look at those tools from your experience, they're going to give you a transactional response of how to make that control turn from red to green.
Mm-hmm. And to add to that, I have seen that a lot of organizations, they are not even mature enough. I think that their program is not even mature enough, but they're going to get a GRC tool. You don't get a GRC tool. It's like, I don't know how to drive, I don't have a driver license, and I'm buying a car. So you get a GRC tool when your program is mature enough to have those GRC tools, because the GRC will help you with governance, and the name says it, governance, risk, and compliance. So we'll check all the controls and all those stuff. But what we are doing with that platform is basically we are helping you build your program. So let me know if you can see my screen, because I'm sharing that right now. So
Yep,
Ron and I went, okay, so we were at EY, we were delivering cyber maturity assessment. Like when a new CIO or CISO will come on board, it will call EY and we will come as expert to help him with his strategy, his cyber strategy, try to understand what is the current state of his cyber program, and then from there, trying to give him a strategy for the next, for the next 18 months. So those things we were doing for those CISOs or CIOs of 1,400 companies, we saw that we could be able to do it like using our platform. Like instead of having a lot of people doing this, and it will be very costly for some organization, we turn a lot of things that we were doing as human, we put it in the platform. So the platform starts first by gathering, like creating an organizational profile. So what is the organizational profile? We have like information about your organization. If you are like a publicly traded company, so we can pull it directly from Edgar, from the SEC, and get that information on the platform, so that we know your industry, we know your revenue, we know probably the number of employees that you have, all those stuff. And then since we know that, we have a data set in the back end that is built for each of the specific industry, because at the end of the day, if you are in healthcare, it doesn't make sense to give you some recommendation for manufacturing, because you guys don't have the same type of threat. So basically, the different recommendations that we are giving you are tailored to your industry, and as well as tailored to your revenue and the number of people that you have. Probably you can have like 100 employees. So you can have the same recommendation compared to Tacilent, who currently has like 10 employees. It doesn't make sense. So it's better to give you recommendation that you can do. And as Ron said, the goal is to empower you. We are not replacing anybody, but the goal is to empower you to do better things. So we start with the organizational profile. And then when you get on the platform, you can pick create an assessment. So we have different verticals, but today I'm going to be focused on the risk and security verticals. This is the one that we are using to go to market with. So here we have a list of frameworks, but the framework that we are using to go to market is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. That framework is kind of, the NIST is a very solid, as I've been in cybersecurity for over 10 years. NIST is very solid and it's international. So if you build your program around NIST, you won't have any issue to get the ISO 27001 certification. You won't have any issue to get the SOC 2 certification, all those certifications that are tailored to cybersecurity, because the NIST is so deep. So you create the assessment, and then what we are doing is that we are making it easier, like TurboTax. One of the quotes was that you guys are the TurboTax for risk and security. So we are making it easy for you to do an assessment. So you don't even have to be a cybersecurity expert. The way we wrote the questions, and this is a very deep assessment. We have more than 300 questions. So the way we wrote the questions and the way we wrote also the answers is for you to read, and based on your environment, you pick the right answer. And even if you have an issue and you don't know, you have a doubt between picking which response, you still have Ali, our AI agent, which is here. So Ali, you can talk to Ali, and the way, and Ali is like my best friend because I'm always working with Ali, training Ali, because sometimes I don't like his response, but I still have to train him. So you can talk to Ali. Ali will ask you some questions about your environment. You would like to know more about your environment. You give him some response and he will tell you, based on the response that you provided me, I think that you should pick B or C. And you will do the same for each of the questions. And when you have all the response, then we can have like your result for the assessment. So your results are kind of split between the overall goal, the overall level of the program, and as well as the industry peer, as you can see here, because everybody would like to be compared to their competitors or the industry peers. And then Ali will now analyze your result and give you some recommendation. And this is where it becomes really interesting, because the recommendations are tailored to your environment, to your organization. And I was talking about the organizational profile at the beginning. And then giving you the recommendation for you to move from one level to another one. We are not giving you recommendations that you can really measure. Like you will have some recommendations that probably you are at level 1, which is basically partial, and then it doesn't make sense for me to give you a recommendation to be at level 4, which is like adaptive. And I've never seen an organization as adaptive. Even the organization in banking and financial industry are usually around repeatable, which is level 3. So we give you those recommendations. We give you, and those recommendations are really actionable, because we are giving you also the goal that this recommendation is trying to achieve in your environment. And also we're giving you 2 implementation examples. And where the implementation examples are coming from, I remember that throughout the different engagement that I had when I was working for EY, I was giving recommendation and report and strategy to some CISOs, but usually the client were asking me, what have you seen my competitors doing in regard to those recommendations? So what type of example you can provide me? Okay, I understand your recommendation, but I want to see what others are doing. So the way we train Oli is that Oli can give you implementation examples based on the data set that we have in the backend for organizations from the same industry and the same type of organization. And he will tell you, those are things that we have seen those organizations implementing in regard to this recommendation. So you have those recommendations, and it doesn't stop there. We even giving you a roadmap. And this was really interesting because usually when you are having like you're giving recommendation to some people, it's good, but they don't know where to start. So we are even giving you a prioritized roadmap. And what you see here, because right now we are pushing another version of the platform, but what you see here, you will be able as a client to track your progression within the platform. And what we are going to do is that once, let's say you are implementing this first recommendation within the next 6 months, and then you are able to check it that you have actually implemented this recommendation into your environment. You don't have to come back and do another assessment, because Ollie is taking that into account and updating automatically your maturity level, and then you can go keep on doing. And if there is something that's happening and we see that some other organization in your industry are facing some threat or are doing some things, you receive a notification automatically, and and we're giving you some actions to take to be able to close those gaps. So mainly those are the key things that we have here. And then we have the reset piece, where we see reset, as
Andrew,
Ron said.
let me ask you a quick question
Okay.
here, because
Yeah.
first of all, as a matter of fact, it might be a good time if anybody with us here has any questions or wants to put the questions in the chat. But I know I'm getting my mind blown right now. Just want to squeeze in a question. We paid a company who's got a big sign on top of a big building overlooking 285 at Ashford Dunwoody. You guys should know if you drive past there. But they charged us 10 grand to step us through an assessment. And we were a small company.
Mm-hmm.
And that assessment, by the time we got schedules together, you took people right off of their day-to-day job and sat in there, and they had a project manager and an expert. And then, I had to sit in there and I had to bring one of my team members. By the time we wrote the check for 10 grand and coordinated all the meetings, and if we could itemize what the labor cost per hour for folks like me and the rest of the team was, can we extrapolate that? That was a 30 grand exercise for the company, give or take. The whole thing took maybe 2 months, but they were hourly meetings. I think it was twice a week or something like that for the majority of that. If I were to sit down in front of this, and I knew enough at my company, mid-sized company with a mid-sized IT team, and I know enough to fill this out, how long would that take me in hours?
So mid-sides, I would say if you knew all the responses, so it's 300 questions, you could do it in 8 hours.
8 hours?
Yep. I mean, that's being like super generous. I mean, because like the version you see now is a little bit linear. 2.0 that we're working on is going to generate the follow-on question like based on how you respond to the current question. So 8 hours. So 8 hours right now in the current state. I would say that would be if you took a day, it's like, oh, I'm gonna finish this, I'm gonna go through the questions. You could do it in 8 hours. I would say, I mean, give yourself 2 days, right? So let's say you do it in 16 hours is you, and you had to send an email to John that's on your team and to Shanika to answer questions on a different domain. Give yourself some window for that. So yeah.
So you basically are saying you owe us, depending on how creative we get with math, you owe us somewhere between $9,000 and $29,000. You should have invented this a couple of years ago.
Oh, but it's here now, and so like it's here now, and it's better. Like so, the
you can
reason
still use it.
Yeah, and like even your exact use case, Ed, those individuals were only there for that engagement, right? So this doesn't leave you.
That was it. We got handed a report and basically an offer to sign on for
additional
7 figures. It was 7 figures, and the president of our company basically said, we'll just continue along our risk profile.
Yeah, so like this is made for you to be able to take that and implement as much as you can yourself. So when you do go to a third-party solution, it makes you a better user. So you own that engagement, right? So right now, when you think about my life before in the Big Four, we were producing additional. The output was built for me to come do more work, and there's things that you should have done before you even engaged with me or before you actually spent more for services. So when you look at the new buyer, right? So one of the things we talk about the client profile and the new buyer. So there's a generational change for the individuals that control like how they buy. So when you think about brand recognition and value and what you get is basically what you just described. People want instant value, right? It's the Twitter, Instagram effect. You want instant value in what you're paying for. And so that's what the platform is able to provide you. But the other thing, Ed, is like it just doesn't leave you. It doesn't hand you over the assessment, then it's gone. What you see now, and this is what I've been talking about all week, is this is the worst it's gonna ever be, right? It's gonna only get better. So like even the AI engine, even the data set, it only gets better. And then we let you know when it gets better because we help you continuously improve and stay aware of things that you technically need a team of people to do. Or if you left it up to a person, they have to, it's like just what you described. Can I get on your calendar? It's the same thing Landry and I used to do. New SEC ruling comes out. It's like, hey Ed, hey John, Shanika, can I get on your calendar for a few minutes? I want to talk to you about like how this is going to impact your business. Now you just get it automatically, right? And then you can go and validate it because we're giving you the source of where the information came from through like one of the techniques is called retrieval augmented generation. We're able to tell you where the source of that information came from so you can go and validate it yourself. So yeah, absolutely. Like it's definitely a time saver, but it just doesn't stop there. Like we're gonna be there with you through like there's an Ollie version, which the reason we're not chatting with Ollie right now is because there's a new design that's coming and the AI engineer on the back end is doing some changes. And so it wouldn't be the best representation of what the tool is able to do. And so, but then also there's the next version is for Ollie to help you with actual implementation, right? So everything that you can do without going hands-on keyboard, or even in some instances, providing you not just artifacts, but guiding you through the steps you need to do in order to develop a training program as one of the recommendations, or identify identity access management solutions, incident response starting points. And if you can't do any of that yourself, instead of us being like third party first, if you're using the solution in our B2B instance, you can either contact someone as a part of our nerd herd. And so you get that expert like Landry, or you get access to the individual that's been a Fortune 50 chief information security officer that can come over the top with the knowledge that you need to solve that complex problem, which is the continuous training process becomes a data point for us to train the model. And so, so yeah.
Inspiring. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, for the question. And then the last piece is around the the key business variable monitoring. So as you can see here, so as Ron showed during the presentation, the entry point is the assessment. So the assessment, we get more information about your organization. We know where you have some gaps and stuff like that. But for some of the organization, and the example that you will see here right now is for one of our clients. He wanted to know what are the changes or what are the regulations around data privacy on all the 50 states in the United States. So what we did for him, this is like the prototype, is to show him once you finish the assessment, we can send you an alert under the notification button here, and then you will see something like that. So this is the Colorado, the example here is for the Colorado Privacy Act. So you have like the different key points into that law. And also, as you can see, we have like some citation or some reference here. This is going back to our key principle of responsible AI. This is around transparency and explainability, because AI is right now is kind of a black box. So what we are trying to do, and even in academia right now, this is like a hot topic, because people would like to see how the CNN, the neural network is making some decision. And one of the way to do that is using the retrieval augmented generation, as Ron said, the RAG. So we are using RAG so that you can know that we are not making those things up. Those things are coming from data source. Those things are coming from credible data. And you can see the article underneath here. You can see the different article in the law, and you can go even check and validate that. And most importantly is that the notification or the alerts that are coming are tailored to your personas. So let's say you are the chief legal officer, and then you want to know about the Colorado Privacy Act. So the way we are training Ollie, the way Ollie will send you the notification will be more technical. It will use some lawyering language compared to if he was talking to the CTO or the CEO, because the CEO probably is not a lawyer. So it will make that difference sending you the notification. So yeah. And we are not stopping only, this is only for regulation, but we are monitoring also economic, as you can see, reset, economic, social, security, environmental, technology, and timing. And we are telling you how it's going to impact your organization and what you need to do next in order to face those changes.
Wow. Can you revisit the part of the researching the client's business domain, right? Mm-hmm. If you can share, right? So I'm gonna, let me see if I captured it. We're reaching out, like you said, the SEC may be a data source.
Yeah.
Right. And it's gonna go query, that's a trusted data source. But I guess you guys also may be looking at the open web for information about the companies, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
And then are you using that cross-reference methodology also for you're tapping the open web, putting it together, and then doing an assessment of the quality? So if I'm trolling Walmart, right? I hate Walmart. You guys pick up, I hate Walmart. Walmart's your client, but you guys aren't going to let nonsense trolling data necessarily influence what the assessment is. Is it that kind of that level?
So think of the profile as a little bit like simpler than that. Basically, it's the same thing. So when you think about AI solutions, you can never get rid of the person. So in this instance, right, the person is going to be you, Ed or John or Perry. Like when we come and start the engagement, the human interaction you have to have with us to make sure we understand your business from these ancillary things outside of the assessment is for us to validate that. So when we talk about onboarding our clients right now, we start with, this isn't showing all the details that go into it, but we validate all of those inputs because it has some engineering pieces on the back end. We validate this entire questionnaire that's just contextual information to understand your organization, right? So we're talking about anything we could, like, we want to know what are your priorities for your risks, like understanding your tech stack, going back to our use case around the CrowdStrike incident. Like we want to know like what tools do you have in your environment? So like when we set up those alerts, we're looking for these key indicators of activity for you, right? So it's overlaying that. So to your point, like the validation piece of that is actually you, the client, because you know your business better than anything that we're going to come across. And we want to validate that with you at the start of the engagement.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it, Ed. Like that's the platform right now as far as what's up next for us. So what you see now is currently technically already started in the redesign, and then from a couple instances of the use cases, just to sum it up there's a white labeling portion of this to where we sell it to consulting firms and managed service providers to make their lives easier. So the example you just described of like your engagement with that company, they can use our platform to simplify all of that for them. So you get to a point to where you're getting a more efficiency and a more, I've been getting in trouble for saying bespoke too much, but a more customized experience for you and a more purposeful interaction with those third-party solutions. And so there's one. And then you already basically covered the B2B standpoint to where the reason we say it doesn't leave you. So if you're the director of IT, this is your security expert, right? So if you hire a security manager, this is their tool that makes them basically Landry, that sort of that CISSP, CISM, you name it, certification. The platform has all of those for you. So you have that expert. So when back to Shanika's question, it's augmentation and empowerment, not so much replacement, because somebody still has to go do the work. And so the tool can do as much on hands-on as far as, yes, it can go through, but you still need to be able to validate that with the human over top of all of it. And then the third use case is really around the reset portion of it. And you can go to our website, and I'll drop that in the chat here, where we have a law enforcement and security piece of it. So for me, like with being the head nerd and then my background, reset is actually all of the critical data points that you would need to start with if you had a crisis. And so we have these additional rollouts to when I mentioned law enforcement, the platform can function as an intelligence analyst in that environment to where it already has queuing to be able to monitor all these things that you need to know when you're processing large amounts of information. And you can read more about that on our website. I know I feel like I've been talking for a significant, a long time, and so I won't go into like the super weeds of that. But just think of our next rollout of some of the additional features in the platform is the ability to do a tabletop exercise as an additional add-on, a simulation. So you think, Ed, if you've gone through those in your career, it takes you offline for a significant amount of time in that as well. And what if we had, and not what if, but the ability to get everybody that has their camera on right now, if we're part of the exec team, you do as much as you can at your desk. We bring you together for an hour, 2 hours to go through the output of that. And then we can tell you like, hey, because we're using our platform, these are all the additional points you need to focus on. Here's all the artifacts, the playbooks, the incident response plans that you need to have. Here's your business continuity plan. Here's your succession plan if someone goes out, if Ed's in Aruba on vacation and Shanika's got to step up to take the mantle, then like this is the plan that you need to do, right? So it's that living piece. And it's not some complex thick playbook that you're used to getting in the old world, right? It's dynamic and continuously learning with you. The other piece I mentioned is the predictive analytics. So the simulation based off of those alerts that Landry showed you, the goal is to get to a point to where you will be able to see how the implications of it for your business. So think of it as, what does this mean for me? Not exactly what I did do right now, but then what are the second, third order effects of the trickle, right? So how is it going to impact my business long term, and what do I need to prepare for? So those are some of the other the big pieces. There's some updates we're already currently working on with the what we call our in assessment Ollie, which is going to look more just like you would in TurboTax. If you use TurboTax now, you can go through, it walks you through a response, and if it can't respond, and this is how we're training our AI agent in the algorithm, it will prompt you to contact the nerd herd. So if you would like to, and you're paying for that service, it's just like you can contact a CPA, you can contact an expert in identity access management, in data security, in governance, or in training, or you name it. Those experts will be available globally as a part of one of the additional add-ons. And there's a bunch of other features as well that we have in our roadmap and dependent on the client. So that's pretty much it for us. Like we appreciate the opportunity. If there's any questions, we'll definitely love to stop just talking to ourselves. So
not so fast, Professor Johnson.
Ed, yeah, this is Perry. Yeah, go ahead. When you're done that, I have a question when you're done. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead, Perry.
No, go ahead, please.
Because Ron put out a offer to talk to some experts, and we've got you and Landry here. This might look somewhat like how you when you came in and rescued us way back when, RJ. Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce, same platform. I mean, same company, almost zero governance, and customer data abound. Right, just kind of sitting out there. And this is not actual client data, by the way, if anyone wants to, right? So we had two platforms, two huge threat vectors, two SaaS platforms, little to no governance. And at the time, you gave us a roadmap, and that turned into us getting an assessment and doing all the things that we needed to do.
Yeah.
But let's reset the clock. We're a company, we're a relatively small company, non-for-profit. We've got a few dollars, but we got to be careful with our spend. We've got these two platforms. We're moving from Salesforce onto Dynamics, and come along. We've got our little book of business, and then Microsoft says, "Yeah, Copilot. Yeah, take that along with you." And oh yeah, it's safe. Here's our all of our certifications. We have a compliance statement and everything else, SOC and everything else. Should we use it? How should we feel about what this is doing, which is basically looking at our customer data. It's looking at our opportunities data. And it's saying, yeah, I'll read this for you. Every click, I'll get opportunity info, and I'll start turning that into insights and things. I'll go look at the open web of information plus your data that you're entering in, and I'll try to give you a composite to accelerate your productivity, et cetera, et cetera. Should we use this? Is my question to Tacilent.ai or Ali.
So I just talked about this a little bit earlier today. So I think you think of it two ways. The first one being like, how sensitive is the data that you're putting into it? Then the other one,
our customers are marginalized groups of people who don't really know when they're giving up their PII.
Yeah.
Right. And we're here. Our firm is in the business of trying to protect them and teach them some skills to navigate, safer in society. So pretty critical, pretty sensitive, pretty critical mission, at least to us, and pretty sensitive.
Yeah. So I would look at it from an enterprise piece here and think of it from like your data governance and loss prevention, like policies around like what you should be entering to these tools, right? Because a lot of organizations, they ban the use of some of this, but if they do have this access, it's in a it's not the somewhat open version of it, right? And so I would look at it from that end. I would definitely need to know more, but in most of the cases, if you're actually using Copilot or any Microsoft suite, which is probably a part of like might be included in this E3 is the security piece, Landry. I think this would be.
I think it's the enterprise.
Yeah, so if it's the enterprise, there might be
something like that.
Yeah, so there might be some like this might be just deployed in their environment to where it's not pushing some things back. But the only thing I would caution is they've already proven to you that they use everything that you put into these into the models to train them. Like LinkedIn even has there's been a bunch of articles over the last couple of weeks about LinkedIn using your post and everything to train their models. So I would focus more so on like what are the requirements you put in place within your organization of whether or not you should be using these solutions. And if you are, like what are the parameters that you're putting on the data that goes into them? So again, it goes back to what BDPA is about from a data piece, like the data governance, the security, like what are you going to put around there? Like what policies do you have in place on the use of AI solutions? And if this is one that's been signed off by and you can get to this through our assessment as well, right? Like that should help you point you in that direction. So yeah, like I think it goes back to like, do you have that program? And most people don't. And that's why you see a lot of people banning these in organizations. But I think if you're using the assessment, it should point you in that direction by asking you some of those questions around what is your data governance and your policies that you have in place around this type of, or even the other piece is your data loss prevention and the egress of data from some of your systems, right? So
Thank you. That start with the assessment, find out who you are, right? You didn't say, yep, stay away from those, don't use that, or you didn't say, yep, it's completely safe. It's very pragmatic, very, very good answer. Thank you. Try to ambush you there, by the way.
Nice try.
So, questions? Anyone want to drop a question in the chat, or please feel free to come off mute and.
Yes, sir. Excellent presentation, by the way.
Oh, thanks, Perry.
Yeah. So my question is along the lines of your customers, and since your background is, how are you situated or postured for the defense industrial base? Has any of these agencies or organizations helped you take, basically sell your product to many of the agencies or organizations?
So we have not yet. So it's actually one of our areas where, if you look on our website, it's one of our third industries that we focus on. So we're an SBA disabled veteran certified business from that perspective. But the reason we haven't really focused on it is because, I mean, you know this, Perry, probably better than anyone on here, is like the cycle to get into some of those programs is just it could be lengthy. And so, and then I'm not in the Beltway anymore to get access to some of those. And we actually, there's someone that's starting to help us with getting some of that. But absolutely, we have an entirely other, we haven't posted it on any mediums there or even on our website, but there's a military use case we have as well around the platform. And so, no, absolutely, we're postured to be able to do that. We just haven't tackled that one yet, just because we know the procurement process can be extremely lengthy, and there's in some instances, some certification requirements that we would need to go through.
But hopefully, like I said, the people that you know might be able to expedite that. I know, and the reason why I say that because I work for a defense contractor, supported small businesses most of my career, some of the trade associations here in Washington, and one of my more exciting tours was at the Pentagon. I ran the Mentor Project program as a CETA contractor for the Office of Small Business Programs at DoD. So we actually had all the large companies that we actually paid them to mentor small companies. And then also in the same office, OSBP had the Small Business Innovative Research Program and Small Business Technology Transfer Program. And Shanika, I don't know if you shared with the gentleman on the call here, but I know even last year's conference, I say last year, in this past August, we actually had the acting director for NSA's STTR program give a presentation during our conference. So each year we bring down people from the DoD, the Fourth Estate, Intel, and DoD agencies to our conference to meet people like yourself. So we can have this conversation offline, but let's find out which organizations that can help out. We have many of our members and many of our sponsors actually have federal contracts, and they're always looking for small businesses, whether you're small, like I said, HubZone, women-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned. So we definitely have those networks. We just have to connect those dots for you.
Yeah, so I will definitely ping you because I think the term that I use with Landry from my sport is like we're always be recruiting, always be finding opportunities. So absolutely. So whatever we need to do, Perry, I'll ping you offline. I know and get and set up some time for us to figure out how to expedite that, because we've looked at SBIR and STTR type of opportunities, but we definitely know that knowing some of the individuals will help expedite some of that. So we appreciate that assist.
But it sounds like you're past that. I mean, it's I don't know if you guys have a technology readiness level, but based on some of the things I've heard so far, you guys are pretty much ready for commercialization.
So we're in market now.
Yeah, you're market now, right? So that you may not even need the other ones unless you're working on something new. That's always cool.
Oh yeah, so we
That's
needed
always
like
cool.
the funding would be awesome. Like that small
Yeah.
language was not cheap to build. So yeah, so we definitely the any additional resources just help us get to that next level of where
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And also, I don't know if they share with you as well. We were able to get a grant from NASA this year. When I say we, BDPA, so we can put you in contact with some of the people at NASA that also have grants. As you all probably know, some of the organizations are looking at the commercial space market all by itself, $4 to $5 trillion, just commercial space.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and absolutely like we can get into there's even there's a lot of use cases around government that we've hashed out. We just haven't deployed them, but the
Okay.
platform is built there. It's just a different use case, different data set. And so like it's ready to be able to do that with some scaling. So
Okay. And just everybody on the call, one of the things that we're alluding to, it might be one of the larger elephants in the room right now as far as small businesses and people in the defense industrial base. But I think I know the Pentagon just rolled out CMMC 2 or 2.0. So that's the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. So if you guys take a look at that, that's probably a really hot market right now because bottom line is, in order for small businesses to trade with the Pentagon and the Defense Industrial Base, they're going to need to have that type of certification. And that's not going to stop at DoD. I mean, you know how things work. Typically, that's going to be something that's going to be probably universal throughout all of federal, state, and local, feds-led markets for small businesses to actually do business with the government or with state and local governments as well. But DoD is first. But what you showed today is probably a very good tool that can be leveraged to help many small businesses do that.
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And Perry, was that CSNC?
No, sir. Charlie, Michael, Charlie, CMMC.
Yeah, CMMC. I mean, and we have it on the platform as well. So
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So that would be, like I said, that's something that should be able to help twofold. I mean, your customers and grow new customers as well. Because at the end of the day, your large customers, like your Lockheed Martins, Raytheon, Boeing, they want small businesses that they already trade with to have that capability. And many of them are already working that anyway. But I'm just saying those are areas where if you're looking for those contract vehicles, you're looking for engagements with basically the defense industrial base, that's something that's going to be very hot in the next several years.
Yeah, and Perry, you hit on one of the other use cases that we've come across is around larger organizations using the platform to get their partners up
Right.
to par to be able to work with them. So like absolutely,
That's
like
correct.
yeah.
And that really basically that is the gist of what we did, mentor protege. Being a good mentor, being a good steward of taxpayer money, but as a good mentor, you're helping your small businesses evolve and helping them to grow. So that's really a good success story for any mentor that's in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, I definitely will find some time as soon as your calendar allows for us to connect.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Hey, Ed, over to you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Perry, JV, Shanika, no particular order. Everyone who's attended, just one more call out for questions. Anyone have comments, anything?
Yeah, I probably had a question. I know, Ron, we were kind of talking about this a little bit when I think we're catching up maybe a month or so ago, but as Tacilent grows and scales, like those like tech needs, like if there is a software developer, like I'm a developer, but if there is a developer that's looking to like want to join, I know right now things are still like early, but when things grow, like what would be those skills that you'd be looking for, your team would be looking for?
Yeah, so this is something we talk about every single day because we're getting there, like we're really close. Like the fact that like us hiring in the next 90 days is real, especially with the pipeline that we have and the point where we are in closing some very large deals will make us have to scale really quickly. But we're not just looking for people to fill seats. So we definitely have a culture that we're building. We have someone that's helping us focus on the people part of it because one of the things we don't want to be is all the companies that nothing against any of them or the institutions that we worked for, but there's things that I learned from an executive for growing up in those entities that as a leader, we really want to focus on. We're bringing on people that want to scale and grow with us, that want to mature. So when we mentioned that, we have a list of about 7 core values outside of the principles that you saw that we're focused on. The biggest one, the number one on there is communication, collaboration, and then purposeful empathy is the number one piece of that. And so we really focus on like those soft skills first. Technical, we absolutely want that. But we want people to be a part of the team to help us grow and scale, even if it's just for an instance, you come in, learn, and you were to take another opportunity. But as like we're seeing here, like we want people to join the rocket ship. We are disrupting certain ways of operating in business. And so we want to build that core team for us to function. So Shanika, yes. So from a soft skills piece, that's where we focus on. And we have another list of like some superpowers that we look for within that. But then on the technical side, developers are absolutely so. Landry could talk about some of the specific skills, like from a front end, back end piece, but then also data science, AI engineers. We're starting to get to things like the prompt engineer piece. We see like that's like Landry and I were doing that, and Landry was showing. We were going through that the other day, and it's just like, yeah, that's. But for us, so yeah, so developers are like from a technical team piece, but someone that understands and can talk to people, because in some of these the organization we're talking about going into, they might have legacy. When I say legacy systems, they have a system that might just do things that are similar. So, but Landry, I'll let you hit on any of the technical things that we talked about on the tech side, and then all around there's we're also, I guess, we're looking for technical, but then also we have an intelligence component that Landry that we were demoing Reset that's looking for people that have critical thinking skills. But I'll stop talking there, and Landry, and let you talk about some of the other technical pieces that we're looking for.
Yeah, sure. So about the technical piece, I think that as software developer for the front end, we are looking for people that have expertise in Angular, and then for the back end, Python. So and also some expertise in data science, NLP, all those stuff. Because as a startup, and I used to say to run, it's like a basketball team. So everybody that comes on the team should make the team better. So yeah, you come on a team, you have your skills, but you need to be willing to learn additional skills as well. So yeah.
So yeah, so definitely follow. So I would say with that, follow us on LinkedIn. We did have a job posting for a sales executive a few months ago, but that's where we'll post everything first, and then our website. So definitely follow our page on LinkedIn, and then also check our website. But we're pretty active and keep LinkedIn up to date on those job postings. So
Yeah. I know you mentioned you also had some interns this past summer too, right?
yes. So I think Zach. Yeah, Zach was one of our interns. He's on the call right now from the summer.
I don't,
So
is that the same Zach? I
I
don't
think
think so.
is it not? I think it might be Zach. Because Zach's in one of my classes as well right now. So I think that might be Zach. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so yeah, so right now we're actually I dropped the ball on getting us interns for the current semester. Because I didn't send over but I think we probably could still get them. I'm actually trying to form partnerships. I spoke to Kennesaw today. Actually, someone just pinged me from Georgia Tech, and so we're looking for interns in like some of the technical areas that Landry mentioned, but then also from a marketing standpoint, and then individuals that understand some of the policy pieces, because as we grow and scale, there's a policy aspect of the platform and having individuals that can do that. But one of the things we tell everyone, like when you're able to working on what we're working on is literally changing and evolving every day. So being a part of the AI world and the startup and understand the cybersecurity pieces of it and doing it the right way and responsibly, like this is the place to be. So yeah.
Okay.
Professor Johnson, please add to your list. You need to get in touch with Sadeja from our CX board, and she's well connected. We had an intern through Kennesaw as well. She's very close with that department now and is working on getting 2 more interns. She may be able to even help you out with your needs.
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Hey, we so appreciate you guys being with us. What a great presentation, and the depth that we went in. It was it had my mind spinning, that's for sure. Some great stuff there. Thank you guys. And Ed, one day we're gonna say we knew these guys when. So
Amazing
yeah, we
stuff.
so appreciate it. Perry, if you're still on, I can't see on my screen here. Do you want to can you give us like a little 20, 30-second teaser what you're thinking about in November with us?
So November is a very busy month. And we may have to actually adjust our schedules for that. But November, we're actually are going to probably have a team in Houston, Texas, attending Afrotech. And that's probably the same time frame as if you guys are meeting like with the third Wednesday or every month.
Yep.
But we can probably still chime in from Houston, but we will be in Houston for that. But no, the following week we'll be in Atlanta. The Supercomputing Conference, SC24, is in Atlanta, so we'll be in Atlanta the following week as well. But anyway, for November, I know this past weekend we had any of you guys Navy veterans? Okay, so happy birthday, Navy, everybody in your Navy family. But November, you have a national holiday. It's November 10th. That's the 249th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. So that's a national holiday. That's probably the most exciting event we're going to have in November next month.
So I take it, Perry, you're a Marine?
Hoorah.
Okay. This is going to be cake that day.
So JV, it's short and sweet, man. November is 10 November. But anyway, long story short, Shanika has the calendar. We put out an 18-month calendar. So we're actually, November is usually our supercomputing month, high performance computing, supercomputing month. And also we kind of kick it off this week. October 18th is Exascale Day. So we want to wish everybody a happy Exascale Day. For the geeks in the room, that's 10 to the 18th power. And everybody celebrates Exascale Day for all the supercomputers that are out there that are being deployed in some of our labs for Department of Energy. But for the most part, we look at November. The Supercomputing Conference occurs every year in November. And this is the first time they've actually had it back east for a while. A lot of times it's out west, Portland, Reno, Dallas, Phoenix. But this year is going to be in Atlanta. But that's pretty much some of the things we'll touch on next month. Will be supercomputing, high performance computing, and we may even venture into some of the topics evolving around quantum computing and post-quantum cryptography.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thank you for that. Shanika, any closing thoughts?
No, yeah, thanks everyone for your time. Thanks Edwin for facilitating, and thanks again for Tacilent for coming back and speaking with us. And yeah, definitely everyone check out the links in the chat. Stay connected. If there's any follow-up questions with Tacilent or Ron, yeah, feel free to reach out to me, Perry, anytime.
And thanks for the invitation, everybody. Good stuff. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Perry. Well, good night, everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.